Hello folks, and welcome to yet another dinky episode of the Audiophile Man. And I say dinky, and there's a reason behind that, because we're looking at two rather small speakers, powered speakers as well, near field I would probably describe these as, and they are from Edifier. There are two speakers, the MR3, which is pretty darn small, but the even more diminutive M60s as well. We're going to look at both of those in this video. Now, if you want to upgrade the sound in and around your desktop or laptop computers, or if space and cache are tight and you still want to run a turntable, CD or streaming-based hi-fi, then powered speakers can be a lifesaver because they bundle the amplifier and the speakers together. And I have done a video making the case or otherwise for powered speakers, and I'll put a link above. You can check that out at your leisure. So, as I say, Edifier have two powered options on test here. Let's take a quick techie look at each, shall we? The MR3 speakers, well, they span 126mm by 220 by 185, and they weigh in at 3.85 kilograms. On the front, up top, is a 1-inch 25mm tweeter surrounded by a dimpled waveguide, and that sits above a 3.5-inch, what's that, 89mm mid-bass unit. Inside the basic MDF cabinet is a Class D 18 watts plus 18 watts amplifier. Now, in connectivity terms, I like the front-mounted quick access headphone socket and 3.5mm auxiliary, which will be useful to connect something like a DAP, for example. You'll also find the volume knob here just to the right. On the rear is a Bluetooth pairing button, some balanced sockets for, a mixing desk perhaps, or similar, tone controls, RCAs for computers or a turntable, but there are no optical or USB options, and I thought that was a shame. Also a shame are the spring-loaded speaker connectors. Then again, I can quite understand the reduction in sockets and the low-cost connectors because, well, these are rather low-cost designs. Even so, in aesthetic terms, I thought the copper disc stuck on the mid-bass unit and that copper-coloured volume knob just made the speakers look a little bit cheap and tacky. Black would have been a better colour option, I reckon. Moving over to the slightly more expensive, yet still low-cost M60 speakers now, and they span, well, they're even smaller. They span 100mm by 168 by 147mm, and they weigh in at just 3.07 kilograms. They also offer a 1-inch 25mm tweeter, but the long throw mid-bass unit spans just 3 inches or 76mm. Inside the MDF, again, cabinet is a more powerful Class D 66-watt amplifier. Again, there's no optical, but there is a USB-C input, and that sits alongside a 3.5mm auxiliary. Again, it's a shame there's no other inputs or outputs on the back here. Instead of the spring-loaded speaker connectors, the M60 uses a higher quality DIN cable to connect each of the speakers together, the master and the slave unit. You also get a rather neat touch interface on the top of the master speaker, and that selects volume, power, and source. In use, I found the interface responsive during the tests. The M60s also offer angled aluminium speaker stands for near-field listening out of the box, and these were very welcome indeed. Both speakers include rear-facing bass ports. Both provide simple yet welcome rubber feet under each speaker. Both can also be controlled via the Connex app, and that can provide volume control plus EQ inputs, which are basically digital tone controls. I left these alone and I used the flat default option during the review. So basically, they're the speakers in techie terms. Question is, how do they sound? Well, let's have a little listen, shall we? To begin, I thought I'd check out the speakers in my listening room, and I decided to connect the speakers to a turntable, specifically my Audio-Technica 120X turntable with a VM95E cartridge. Listening was not really done at normal hi-fi listening distances. These are dinky speakers after all. At the same time, I decided for this particular test not to go specifically near field. Instead, I listened somewhere in between to simulate a bedsit environment, a small bedroom perhaps, or even if you've plonked the speakers on a nearby table in an office. I then drafted in my reference Kanto YU4 powered speakers, which are rather more expensive than the Edifiers at £280. But I wanted to challenge the Edifiers and see how close the Edifiers could get to the YU4s. If they could get even close, that would do me, and this test would be a raging success. To test the 120X turntable, I used that turntable's built-in phono amplifier. Yes, the Kantos do have a built-in phono amp in the speakers, but I wanted this test to offer more of a level playing field, so the 120X was used as a phono hub instead. In software terms, I turned to the mid-70s release from the King Singers called Keep On Changing. This is a vocal harmony group with, as you might expect from the times, a range of organic instruments backing them, from rocking quartets to full-blown orchestras. I began with the track Song and Dance Man, which featured banjo, drums, piano, lap steel guitar, bass guitar, and a bank of strings, plus secondary percussion. A busy soundstage, therefore. I compared the Kantos initially with the lower-cost MR3s. Straight away, I could hear the smaller soundstage and lower bass impact from the MR3s. And that was to be expected from a set of speakers at less than half the price of the Kantos. Never mind the smaller cabinet. The upper mid extension also didn't quite reach as far. Again, no real surprises here. On the other hand though, what I did like and did surprise me with the Edifiers was the overall tonal balance. In broad terms, the frequencies from the MR3s kept their discipline. Bass was never flabby, the mids never sounded disjointed, and treble didn't tiz or fizz. And that's always a threat with low-cost designs. Even when the chaps belted out a middle eight here and there, the MR3s kept it together. So at high volumes and during crescendos, the speakers did threaten to wobble and fall over a bit. But on the whole, they did in fact keep it together, as I say, and I enjoyed their relative neutrality. Moving to the smaller yet more expensive M60s, I used the included RCA to 3.5mm converter cable included in the box, and I connected that to the 120X. And by the way, this converter cable is dirt cheap. We're talking about bootlace cables here, folks, and I recommend upgrading them if you're going to use the turntable with these speakers. Even so, I was impressed with the greater confidence and solidity from the M60s. Bass was tighter, more prominent in the mix. Vocals were smoother, emphasizing the extra clarity from the mids, while percussion offered subtlety and delicacy, and treble was also impressive for the price in terms of fragility and insight. If you are thinking of using these speakers at a sort of medium distance listening position, I would go for the M60s. It's worth saving the extra cash for the performance hike. So let's turn to near field and let's connect these speakers to a desktop computer. Specifically in my case, I had an iMac in my office, and I placed the speakers up close and personal on my office desk. I turned to vocal jazz and I played a WAV rip of the song How Deep Is Your Love from Carol Kidd, featuring vocals and a jazz trio of piano, guitar and bass. I first turned to the MR3s, hooking the speakers up to my computer via a supplied converter cable, plugging the RCAs into the speakers and the 3.5mm end into my iMac. Again, the Kantos offered lots of power and presence, but in this near-field configuration, compared to the MR3s from Edifier, I thought the Kantos sounded overly warm and probably too much bass emphasis in near-field mode. the MR3s had, once more, a really nice tonal balance. Bass on the MR3s was better integrated into the mix. Also, because it had less work to do now, the MR3s also provided a good bass response, and because of that inherent neutrality, cymbal taps, as one example, floated off into the distance on a bed of reverb. I actually preferred the MR3s in near field mode to the more expensive, vastly more expensive YU4s. As for the Edifier M60s, again, the amplifier had less work to do here, but nevertheless, the sense of power potential and foundation that the amplifier provided made for a quite brilliant performance in near field mode. Considering the price then, and these speakers are all about the price, price is central to both designs actually. The M60s sounded remarkably, how can I put this? Hi-fi. They had a supremely cultured sound. That is, mids offered detail without any apparent effort. There was space and air around the mid-band. Treble was delicate, while bass was there in spades if required. The middle 8 acoustic guitar solo said it all, with subtle aggression on the plucked strings, providing a real angular and provocative effect. Let's stay in the near-field configuration, but let's switch on Bluetooth, shall we? And I hooked up my Astel & Kern Can Alpha DAP and played the rocking and up-tempo track I Will Not Hide from the Doves. Supporting Bluetooth 5.4, the MR3 speakers seemed, in broad terms, very happy indeed in this high-energy mode, entering into the party spirit with, again, largely neutral upper frequencies, combined with good supporting lower frequencies. Once more, if you really pushed these speakers in terms of volume, and there were those high-energy crescendos, the MR3s did threaten to strain a little bit, but only a little bit in near field mode. I was disappointed in Bluetooth terms with the MR3 because only the SBC basic codec was supported here. So that meant the overall sound quality was ultimately restricted. Turning to the M60 speakers now and supporting Bluetooth 5.3, the M60s really excelled, more so because Bluetooth in this case was delivered via the LDAC codec, which enabled Bluetooth to really fly, being packed with information and mixing delicate acoustic guitar riffs with really meaty and powerful bass from the percussion, especially so considering the small size of these speakers. And a quick note about the M60 speakers on top of those angled little stands, which angle the speakers towards your head. And yes, in use, the stands did improve matters in sonic terms. Pointing the tweeters directly at the ears, well, that improved focus and precision from the mids and treble, while giving great imagery and structure from the soundstage. The stands were also useful if you were working very close to your desk and very close to those speakers. The upturned speakers continued to provide detail in this position. So that's basically the review of the MR3 and M60 speakers from Edifier. Let me give you a few final thoughts, and I will give you some pros and cons as well, and finally a rating for both. So, final thoughts. Well, let me say this. Both of these speakers are excellent for the price, and price is dominant here. As I say, for the price, both are excellent. Edifier has done a great job and provided an equally valuable service for all music lovers on a budget. After all, both packages offer both an amplifier and speakers all in one. All you need to do is add a source component. That puts a lot of pressure, though, onto these designs. The MR3s have the most difficult job trying to provide the best sound possible at such a low price, and with this feature count, it's a tough ask. For the price you pay, though, the performance is commendable indeed. Sure, Bluetooth could be better spec'd, and the sound does threaten to fall over when placed under pressure. Even so, there is a lot to love here. But it's the M60s that take the plaudits here, I would say. The price might be a little bit higher, but so is the build budget, which means less design compromises. Even so, the asking price for the M60s is still very low indeed for what you get. The value for money here, considering the excellent sound quality, is through the roof. Edifier has provided the perfect balance of price and performance, but at a low price tag. In short, both products are to be highly recommended, but the M60, well, that's just a bit special. Pros and cons. Turning first to the MR3 in the good section, I loved the price, and because of that, it really offers great value for money. I also liked the front-mounted controls and sockets. In the bad section, well, speaking of sockets, it's a shame you don't get an optical socket. That would have been very useful. The aesthetics, personally, I thought they could have been improved, and sound can wobble a little bit if you push these speakers really hard. Turning to the M60s now in the good section, the footprint and the size, well, these are truly small speakers. In addition to that, I thought the price was just excellent. The stands, I loved the stands, often with a pair of speakers, for example the Kantos. You have to buy the stands separately. Here, the M60s include the stands in the box. I thought in general terms the sound quality was terrific. In the bad section, well, I thought there could have been more effort placed on the connectivity of the actual speakers themselves in terms of inputs and outputs. But to be honest, for the price, I'm really being picky. In terms of ratings, well, let's start with the MR3 first. There's lots of good points. There's also a few bad points. I still like these speakers very much, but I'm going to give 7 out of 10 as the rating. As far as the M60s are concerned, I thought these were just an amazing set of little speakers. Again, considering the price, I love them to bits, and that's why I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10. Congratulations to Edifier. And that's a lot, folks. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this particular video. Can I ask you, before you disappear, just down below, can you click on the like and subscribe buttons too, please? Be a big help for the channel. Also, I'll put links down below for the Edifier speakers. My own links are also down in the description. Things like my website address, if you want to go visit the website, all kinds of stuff over there you won't find here. Also, my Facebook group, which you're welcome to join. And finally, my Patreon page, which has a regular hi-fi news, etc. video exclusive to Patreon out every week. And there's a new one out this week. There's all kinds of buyer's guide stuff and music-related features and all kinds of things. Tour videos, all kinds of stuff. Check it out. I'll be back. When will I be back? Probably Friday with a new music alerts video. This upcoming week is a little bit busy. Not sure if I can squeeze one in. I'll try my best. Anyway, if it's going to turn up, it'll be Friday. If not, I will see you this time next week for another review. And I hope to have your company. Until then, folks, bye-bye for now.